You are listening to the What a Word podcast, an interview style podcast where guests bring their unique experiences and insight on culture, life's challenges, and faith. Each episode is seasoned with words which will inspire and encourage. Now, here is your host, Ryan Sharp.
All right, so welcome to the What a Word podcast. Today, my guest is Asha, the scientist, as she's affectionately known on Instagram. And I'll ask her at points during our conversation to share ways that listeners can get in touch with her. This is actually our first time speaking, but I came across her page after interviewing a former guest, and I was intrigued by what she offered on Instagram. And I'm honored to have her on the podcast, which will also be on YouTube. Please join me in welcoming Asha, the scientist, to the What a Word podcast. Welcome, Asha, to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I appreciate you reaching out.
You're most welcome. I want to ask you, with all the career choices in the world, could you share with listeners why you chose your particular career pursuit? And give us the why of why you chose your particular career pursuit.
Definitely. So I chose to go into the field of dietetics, really based off a conversation I had with my mom when I was in high school, and I was looking up different medical programs to become a cardiologist, just because I knew I wanted to help people, but I also knew I wanted to kind of go into the field of health. So she sat down with me and she told me to pursue something that you'll wake up every single day and feel like it's not a job, like you'll be so passionate about it and love your job every single day. So I knew I was passionate about food and I knew I wanted to help people. So I looked into different careers that kind of merged the two together, and I found the field of nutrition and dietetics, and I never heard of this field before. So I began to look into it more. And I found the career path of becoming a registered dietitian nutritionist. And a registered dietitian nutritionist, as you spoke with Dr. Lewis about, can work in a variety of different settings. They can do research, they can work in a clinical setting, they can work in the community, and they can really help various people to be able to improve their overall health behaviors, which includes, healthy eating habits, physical activity as well, which both of those two topics go hand in hand. So that's how I came across a registered dietitian nutritionist. And I'm not at that level yet. I don't have my credentials yet. I'm in school right now at the University of Michigan. So I'm on track to become a registered dietitian nutritionist.
That's awesome. So you grew up in Michigan?
I did. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan for about 3 years. I was born there, and then I moved to a suburb right outside of Detroit in Michigan.
Well, that's awesome. What is the weather like, and how conducive is it to gardening, which I know is also an interest of yours?
So the weather in Michigan, we have about 3 months of summer, maybe a month or two of spring. So you can do some spring gardening and some fall gardening when the weather is like still a little bit cold, but not warm enough for like hot crops. And then we have, like I said, May through August of like nice weather, about 70 degrees or higher. And then we have the fall gardening, which is like October. And it was supposed to be November this year, but our temperatures dropped to like 30 degrees. So fall gardening is over at this point.
Wow, that's awesome. And I want to talk to you a little more about that, because listeners are going to wonder, why is Ryan having a guest on to talk about gardening in the heights of the shift in the weather? But I think you'll have something to offer about ways we can prepare to get maybe our own interest peaked in gardening, and children as well, even during seasons where it is not as warm or as hot. But I wanted to ask you as well about the confirmation you got that you made the right decision in terms of your career pursuit. When did you get that confirmation at the earliest?
That's a great question. I would say once I arrived on campus at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, that's where I went for undergrad, and I studied food and nutritional sciences with a concentration in human nutrition. And on campus, it's an HBCU. It's one of the largest and the best, of course, Aggie Pride. And on campus, I was just surrounded by students that looked like me. I was taught by professors that also looked like me and reflected the passion and the issues for various topics that are affecting people of color, like chronic disease and diet-related illnesses, and also just wanting to see people of color improve their health outcomes through food and through physical activity. So when I was on campus, I was able to get involved in research, and that I feel like was a confirmation that I knew, that what I was doing, what I was studying, the people I was connecting with in terms of nutrition, dietetics, nutritional sciences, food science, was all what I was supposed to be doing. I was able to get involved in various research projects on campus, which helped me to connect what I was learning in the classroom to, what I wanted to pursue even after I earned my degree, and, the impact that I'm able to make as a researcher, understanding problems that affect my community and helping to improve health outcomes in my community. So, research was a path that I didn't know I would travel down, but I'm so grateful that I did, because I was able to continue to learn and continue to grow as a researcher and a scholar as well.
That's awesome. How far along are you now in the journey in terms of your career?
So I just started at the University of Michigan in the School of Public Health. I'm a first-year Master of Public Health in Nutritional Sciences with a concentration in dietetics student. So it's my first semester. I graduated from North Carolina A&T in December of 2020. So I'm not too far removed from undergrad, but I just started my graduate journey. But it's been challenging so far, but I know that all this hard work will be worth it in the end for sure.
That's awesome, man. I'm so happy with all that you've accomplished. And it's especially inspiring to see individuals who have a passion for the work they're in. And while doing it, they're getting confirmation that they made the absolute best decision. Now, your mom told you do something that will keep you awake, will bring joy to your heart. Is mom right about the field you're in?
Yes, definitely.
Right?
Definitely. Yeah. I was able to learn so much about just the field of dietetics and nutrition and food, and like learning about recipe development and learning about farm to table and learning about how to, design nutrition interventions to help improve behaviors in various populations. So, those are things growing up I wasn't exposed to. And now that I'm in the field, like I'm able to see all the different aspects of dietetics and nutrition.
What did the pandemic reveal to you in terms of your area and study? Because you seem to be making a connection, even in what you said about health and diet and the community. What did the pandemic amplify for you in terms of the connections, those same connections?
Right. I feel like the pandemic, it was able to amplify really my understanding of people wanting to grow their own food or their interest in gardening. I saw a lot. I worked at a landscaping store for a short period of time when the pandemic had started, and just the supply and demand issues that occurred because so many people were coming in to buy transplants and seeds and soil because they didn't have anything else to do, and they wanted to grow plants and grow vegetables in their backyard. So I was able to see that just from working there for a short period of time, and that really sparked my interest in starting a Instagram brand, and it's now called Asha _the_scientist on Instagram, where I was able to basically educate, empower, and uplift young people to utilize space to grow their own food, and then, harvest the food that they grow and make healthy recipes to help improve their health behaviors across the lifespan. So I wanted to start with that age group just because it's not only a difficult age group because we think that we're invincible and we like to eat, what we like to eat at that age because we are so young, but trying to help them to understand, that healthy eating is a lifelong thing. It's not just, a thing that you do for a month until you reach your desired weight goals or your desired body goals. So that was the connection that I saw in the pandemic, and just utilizing a social media platform to be able to educate people and to be able to show them like it's possible to grow your own food, especially as a young person, no matter where you are, if you're in an apartment, if you're in your parents' home still, because that's a reality for a lot of young people as well.
I love the segue. Can we get more into horticulture, which is, I think, what you are driving us to right now? So horticulture, as I understand it, is the art or practice of garden cultivation and management. When did you first get exposed to gardening?
I would say at a young age. I'm not sure exactly, what age, but it was like when I was probably like 5 or 6, maybe. And my dad had me out in the garden with him every single year after that first exposure with him, like just taking the weeds out of the soil and making sure that the soil was ready to receive flowers and other perennials that we were planting every single year. And I just continued to work with him in the garden, and that was kind of a bonding tool that we established, but also it was able to cultivate, my interest in gardening and horticulture and agriculture as well. And I just, growing up, I never made the connection to growing my own food and gardening. But once I went away to an HBCU in North Carolina and came back, I had a conversation with my parents, and I was like, I want to utilize the space in our backyard to grow our own food, to become more self-sustainable, to hopefully help reduce the grocery bill, and to, provide less work for my dad because he was cutting the grass. And, if I'm tearing up some grass, I'm taking some work off of your plate, really, when, we're utilizing more space in our beautiful backyard. So that was, how I kind of got started in gardening and how I continued to mold and to shape my interest in gardening as well.
That's awesome. It would seem at that age that the outdoors and gardening appealed to your natural curiosity. And you mentioned earlier that this option is available to individuals who may not even have the yard space per se, but may be interested in learning about cultivating or managing a garden. Could you explain for us the various ways individuals can get involved or get into gardening a little more?
Definitely. So there's different types of gardening. There's, hydroponics, where you don't utilize any soil, but you utilize water and nutrients to grow various foods and fruits and vegetables. There's also, I know in the city of Detroit, and I'm sure in other cities, you can rent a plot of land and you can grow your own food that way. It's not in your residence per se or in your apartment, but you will have to travel to utilize space to grow your own food. And also there's container gardening, which you can do in your apartment or in your home. If you wanted to bring some plants in during the winter and kind of create your own greenhouse inside of a closet, or create your greenhouse outside, there's different ways to create sort of a hoop house or a greenhouse using, supplies that you can get from not a grocery store, but a dollar store. Like a hula hoop and, some cover to help protect your plants from wind and from colder temperatures if you live in a climate like Michigan. Some crops can be grown in the snow. Some crops definitely cannot, just due to low light exposure and then the extremely cold temperatures as well. And I would say as well, there's definitely other ways that you can garden. I know on Instagram, there's so many different pages of people living internationally and all across the US that are just utilizing different techniques to enhance their garden and enhance their cooking skills as well.
That's awesome. So I'm a parent of two 10-year-olds and a 7-year-old. Could you walk me through what I could pique their interest in? Because I imagine for you, you started pretty young, and I'm going to ask you about the first thing you planted and the results. So I'll do it this way. Could you tell us about the first thing you planted and the results of that, and then walk me through what I could start my children off with in terms of exposing them in where we were at maybe 30 degrees this morning. So,
Right.
with this
Exactly.
season's weather, how can I get them pique their interest in horticulture?
Right. So piquing young children's interests really in anything, I don't think it's that difficult. It depends on your children too, but I would say like green onions that you buy at the grocery store that can be used as a garnish on a lot of different dishes, regardless of the different type of cuisine that you're cooking. Um, you can put green onions in like water, and then those onions will sprout and grow over about a period of probably 3 to 5 days. And just having your kids see the progression from day 1 to day 5, that could spark their interest in gardening. Because once the green onion reaches about day 5, you probably will have to change the water out, and you could maybe put it in some soil so that the green onion could grow over the winter in a windowsill. Just maybe have them do an experiment, and you can call it that, just so that they can, see the green onion from day 1 to day 5, and then see it. How far can you help it grow in 30-degree weather inside, right? And also, as well, I would say you can do onions. You can put them in water, the brown part of the onion in water, and see if it'll grow or do anything, or will it just rot. Like, just doing various experiments with various types of fruits and vegetables, that can definitely kind of help them to be intrigued and interested. And then when the weather breaks, you can actually get out into the soil, and they can get their hands dirty as well. One of the first things I planted when I started gardening, I looked up different crops that were easy to grow, just because when you're a beginner, you don't want to start with Brussels sprouts and you don't, produce results that you're looking for. So I started with lettuce. Lettuce seeds are really easy. You just put them on top of the soil, water them, and then they'll begin to germinate or start growing within like 2 to 3 days. And they really just do their own thing. I love, the resilience of just planting various fruits and vegetables, because if there's wind, or if there's, not as much rain as you were expecting or anything else, like, they will be okay. That's something that I had learned this past season. So gardening is a journey. You're not going to learn it overnight. It's going to be like trial and error, but it's definitely worth it in the long run.
That's powerful. That's powerful. What have you seen in terms of the area in which you live, Detroit? I know for a lot of public health professionals, there was an emphasis on community gardening and or exposing or making available to residents who are in food deserts the options to have natural foods available through having a community garden. Is that something that's available where you are in Detroit?
Definitely. I was able to get involved with an organization called Keep Growing Detroit, and they are awesome because they provide education to gardeners that are experienced or gardeners that are just starting out and don't know where to start. And they have lots of YouTube videos online, which you can watch from anywhere. They're free. They're from experts within, the field of horticulture, and people that, work at Keep Growing Detroit as well. And they provide transplants and seeds and soil and other resources for anyone living in the city of Detroit and that wants to, start their own garden. You can join their garden research program for $10. So it's really economical, and you get a lot of bang for your buck. And they provide you with cold crops and hot crops as well. So that's awesome too, because you're able to have a full garden by the end of the season when you have both crops. So that's definitely awesome. And then there's other organizations within the city of Detroit. Oakland Avenue Farm is another organization that you can that practices community gardening, and they, have a garden that's accessible to the community where they can come in, community members can come and learn and educate themselves. And there is another garden that's slipping my mind right now, but it's connected to the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network. And that's another organization that does programming and education around just agriculture and gardening and becoming more self-sustainable as a community in the city of Detroit. And finally, I will plug the Detroit Food Policy Council. I also work with them. And that organization really connects the policy of gardening and having livestock, and understanding how the food system in Detroit impacts health outcomes as well through research, policy, and education as well. So those are 3 different organizations that work to help Detroit learn more about agriculture, etc.
That's awesome. I will be sure, and you can let me know whether it's okay to put all of these impactful organizations in the podcast link as well. So individuals who may want to learn more or support, I don't know if they rely any on public funding, but certainly if that is the case, I'd like to encourage others to either access or support these impactful organizations as well. Now, you've made the connection between natural food and health and diet. Are you plant-based as well? I went on your Instagram page and I noticed that you do a lot of cooking demonstrations, and you just show individuals like the 101s of having natural foods and tasty juices. Are you plant-based?
Great question. So I'm not plant-based. I call myself a flexitarian. It's not a made-up term. It's a real thing if you Google it. But really, it's like flexing between various different types of diets, and I still do eat animal protein, but I also eat plant protein. It just depends on the day. It depends on what I have access to. And I'm willing to try vegan dishes. I'm willing to try plant-based or pescatarian dishes. So I call myself a flexitarian, but I like to showcase the plant-based meals on my Instagram, really because some people don't know how to use certain vegetables in the kitchen. So just showing people the versatility of black-eyed peas or collard greens or sweet potatoes, just to name a few vegetables, outside of what we see and what we know, depending on our exposure. Sweet potatoes can be used for so much more than fries or baked. Like, you can use it in a burrito, or you can use it in a soup, or you could, substitute a sweet potato for butternut squash, right? So really getting people to think and be creative in the kitchen. That's one thing I love to do. Just not necessarily writing down a recipe the first time, but just getting in the kitchen to cook and then going back to, write the recipe, and just helping for people to really develop their own personality in the kitchen. That's one thing I definitely pride myself on, and what I do when I'm in the kitchen, truly.
I appreciate that, because what you've done is you've increased the relatability factor for those who may be on that journey but aren't there yet, or don't feel like the plant-based is for them. You're actually showing that, one could be flexible and still have a healthy diet. So I think for those who may not be all the way plant-based, but want to have a healthier diet, you can go to Asha's page, and I'll allow her to share it again, and you can see some tips for how to create healthy meals according to your palate, wherever you are in that journey. And I think that's very, very important. And I thank you for sharing that with us as well. Have you been documenting your journey? Can we be hopeful about maybe a book coming out in the future with your journey from where you are to the present?
Definitely. It would probably be more so of a cookbook, more than a memoir or an autobiography. But I'm excited for the future. I'm young and I'm just starting out. So there's so much opportunity out there, but definitely am looking forward to writing a cookbook in the future as I'm, just in the kitchen writing down various things that I do. My parents are my biggest fans when it comes to cooking. They pretty much love everything. And if they don't like something, I encourage for them to provide me with feedback so that I can, improve it or scrap the recipe if it's just not for me. But definitely, I believe in like documenting recipes in your family as well, and for listeners to like talk to your family members and try to get a collection of your recipes that can be passed down to future generations, so that you can just continue to cook your own food, because when you look at studies, cooking your own food can definitely be healthier than just eating out or eating processed foods as well. So that's one thing I'll definitely say about books and documenting.
Awesome. And I mentioned earlier that a lot of administrators, school principals who have career days, certainly the virtual space, they like to hear stories about the journeys of my guests who may have had desires when they were younger and they followed through on their career pursuits. Um, what can you say to children, and I'll say Black and Brown children in particular, who are unaware of the options in this field, but may have a desire to do something like you are doing related to health and diet and horticulture and gardening and cooking, etc. What could you say to encourage them to explore all that's out there in terms of your field of work?
Right, great question. I would say it's important to reach out to people, definitely, whether you're on social media, whether you're on Google. If you have a person that you look up to that's a chef or that's a dietitian or that's a doctor or that's in the field of food or nutrition or science or STEM, whatever you're interested in, look them up, connect with them, reach out to them, because they definitely have knowledge and experiences and other connections as well, that could help you explore your interests and further your interests in this field of food. And it's also a part of networking. Networking is when you're building relationships, when you're connecting with other people, because it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. So you always want to make sure that you're talking to people, you have an open mind, you're connecting with them, because they may know about an experience that you haven't seen on Google, on Instagram, in your email. But you want to just make sure, excuse me, you want to make sure that you're expanding your network as much as you can. Like, try to be meeting with people or meeting new people as often as you can, every week, every month, and staying in contact with them as well, because like I said, experiences are going to come and go, and the more experiences that you get, the more that you'll learn about what you love and what you want to pursue in education or in your professional or in your personal or as a hobby as
And almost finally, Asha, say a little bit about your parents and how they facilitated your goals and dreams, because many of us parents now who want our kids to know the sky is the limit, we want to know what the secret is. What did your parents do right, so that we can apply some of those things as well in terms of getting our children to to live out their truest potential?
Right. So I think that my parents, one thing they did right, they pushed me to do things I really didn't want to do, or had me step outside of my comfort zone. Growing up, I was in a lot of different enrichment programs where I was learning about engineering and STEM and math and all these things that, like, growing up, you would rather not be learning about. But it helped for me to learn what I do like and what I don't like, and learn more about STEM and just becoming really an analytical thinker. And I think that that really helped for me to be able to see myself pursuing research when I did go to undergrad. So your parents are going to make you or encourage you to do things that you may not want to do, that you don't see the value in it, but just stay the course, trust the process, trust them, because they're definitely having you do that for a reason. And in the future, down the line, you will use it in some way, shape, or form, whether it's directly or indirectly. So trust your parents, talk to them. Like if you're doing something that you know that's not what you want to do, then find something that you do want to do, and hopefully they can support you in that as well. Because sometimes parents can kind of push you into things that they think that would suit you, but you might be interested in something else. So if you are, that's okay, but don't just state the problem, but come with a solution as well.
Awesome. Asha, please share ways individuals can follow your journey. Please give us all the links and let us know what we can expect in the short term if you have anything you want to share with listeners as well.
Definitely. So you all can follow me on Instagram. Again, it's at Asha_the_scientist. And you spell my name ASHA. If you like to follow me professionally as well, I'm on LinkedIn. My first and last name is Asha McElroy. You can just search me there. There are more recipes and more content coming on my Instagram page. So make sure you follow me and try out some recipes as well. Let me know, what you like, what you didn't like. I love to have that dialogue with folks when they do actually try my recipes. Thanks so much, Ryan, for inviting me on your podcast.
You're most welcome. So listeners should know Asha the Scientist on Instagram. Her goal is to educate, empower, and uplift young people between the ages of 18 and 25 to utilize space to grow their own food, create healthy meals, and learn how science connects to their everyday life. Asha, thank you so much for being a guest on the Waterworld podcast.
Thanks. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you and blessings to you on your journey. We're proud of all you've accomplished and we wish you all the best. And hopefully my listeners will connect with her page. A lot of good stuff there. You'll see gardening, you'll see cooking, you'll see recipes. It's very engaging. Please be sure, and I'll put in the links, ways to connect with her on Instagram. Thank you for joining me on the Waterworld podcast on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app, which is released weekly. I'm honored by listener engagement. Please let me know if you have a guest or someone else who you would love to see on the podcast. Certainly, I was inspired by my conversation with Asha, and I'm hoping that in the next few weeks, we'll be able to share more to help you on the journey. Thanks again, and have a good evening.